Hello and welcome to the Voice of Todd. I'm Tom, and in this one I'm going to talk about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I have played. Came out through Game Pass on the 10th of November, I think, so I started playing it on the 11th. Played most of the weekend to get it finished, and I thought I'd just run over my thoughts on this game. But I wanted to talk about it because it presents an issue with Star Wars games in general, but maybe how the license has been handled, that I felt I wanted to talk about and get off my chest a little bit. In the background you will see gameplay dotted about sporadically. The gameplay itself is taken away from early parts of the story. I think it's the Kashyyyk mission, so there hopefully won't be too many spoilers in there, but this video will contain spoilers. It's pretty hard to figure out where to begin with this, because while I enjoy the Star Wars games probably more than the movies, Knights of the Old Republic is the highest standard that I hold any Star Wars game to at this point. And we're going back a few years since that's come out. What I wanted from this and what this is are two very different things. All I want is not even an RPG, just an action game that is just like Jedi Knight 2. It just give me a third person style. You can give me this game without the Dark Souls crap forced into it, and I would have enjoyed it so much more. A friend of mine played it, said it was okay. So that sort of put me off a little bit, but with The Mandalorian going so well, I thought we'll give this a go. It might be really good. How I'm gonna go about this is I'm gonna go through my pros and cons and the little niggles that I had with it, and then I'm gonna touch on the story afterward, because I think with something like this, the game and the gameplay and the story have to be separated from my view, because they're trying to do totally different things in my head. So, the pros. This game actually feels like Star Wars. The atmosphere is fantastic. The worlds, the sounds, fantastic. Loved it. Great attention to detail. I was playing this on the Series X, so I don't know if there is a big boost between the Xbox One, the One X, or the Series X. But on what I played, the animations were great. The facial animations, especially in cutscenes and things, were fantastic. The hair looked really good, which has been a real sticking point for me this generation. Hair's always just looked naff. But this looked quite good. I was quite impressed with how it moved and flowed as you were running around. The attention to detail, I know I've mentioned it, but I wanted to sort of specifically bring up a point where when you take down an AT-ST, the driver gets out. Never seen that before in a Star Wars game, and so that was a really cool little touch. It makes the world feel, again, lived in. Brilliant. The set pieces overall, while a little bit on ropes, followed the kind of familiar path in some elements, but they were fantastic. Really enjoyed the big stuff that's going on around you. And generally, going through the world and seeing the stormtroopers attacking the wildlife and things was great. I enjoyed that. I think it was obviously done with a lot of mocap. It's very mocap heavy. It feels very mocap heavy, so everything looks fluid and seems quite fluid, which was brilliant. Voice acting, I mean, the cast is very good. I'll touch on that in the story section. The voice acting was superb in times. Some of the characters were incredible. Was one specific point that I thought was great was the first bounty hunter fight, where you get captured and you might be able to kill the guy, I don't know. but you get captured and then you've got to escape from this weird jail through a fight in an arena against all the enemies you've come up against to that point in the game. That was a hell of a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that as well. And then we have to get into the cons. My biggest disappointment with this game is that they went Dark Souls play style. I've never been a big fan of that style. I don't play games to get killed 1,000 times before I succeed. That's not what I enjoy doing. People do, and it's great. I love that there's this variety of different ways of going around games and making them, and different people get different kicks out of it. If you enjoy it, good on you, because you're doing better than me. But I really didn't like, even though this is Dark Souls light, I enjoyed the first Dark Souls. I don't want to play it again, but I enjoyed it. I just didn't sit with me when you're playing a Jedi who is, alright, learning powers or relearning to reconnect with powers and things. I didn't like that you had to rest to get your life back, and then all the enemies would be back to slow your progress again, and to go through an area, clear it all out, start to progress to the next area, have to go back. There's a lot of back and forth in this game. And then the enemies have respawned, and it just, I don't know, it didn't sit well with me, that style, and that again ties into the combat. I didn't find the combat enjoyable, didn't find the combat rewarding. I thought the skills and the force power, I mean, force powers are force powers. They've been done to death in games, and generally they feel pretty good when you do them. But I just thought that a lot of it was lacking, the skills weren't that exciting, you never really seemed to have enough force energy to do stuff. And it just felt repetitive. The traversal and the movement as you're doing the platformy Uncharted light stuff. Again, I'm probably being harsh. Any game like that, I go straight to Uncharted 2, and you've got to be as good as Uncharted 2, because that felt fantastic to move around the world in there. This feels slack to me. I never really felt, as I was moving through this beautiful world, it always felt a little off, maybe. And that might just be that there's simple things like when you jump off a platform towards a rope, you're not automatically drawn to the rope. Your camera's got to be facing the exact right way to connect. Which force powers do come into play later in the game, and it takes some of the element out of it. But it just felt a little slack, to use that word again. And when the whole experience is combat and adventuring, when both of those things don't sit, it takes away from the overall experience for me. Again, if you didn't have a problem with it, all power to you, because it really frustrated me at times. I actually, and I don't do this, if I start on a difficulty, I will finish it on a difficulty. But I got to a point with this game where I was so frustrated with it, and I just didn't want to play ball anymore, that I put it onto story mode, just to find out what was going on with the story, because I was that just wound up with the continual combat, and it's probably me just not even trying to understand it and do it properly. But all the enemies just felt, it wasn't rewarding, and I just wasn't enjoying the game, so I put it onto story mode. I was playing the game more for the story than anything else. A few niggles that I had. Health, I do like a health regen, and I know that again it doesn't tie into the Dark Souls mentality of your healing potions and stuff, so I kind of get that, that's why it's a niggle. But I did feel like I had a lack of health. Force energy was very low. I had all the upgrades that you can get through the skill tree. May have upgraded it once through finding secrets as well. Never felt like I had enough, and because it doesn't regen, you've got to hit enemies to get force back. I never felt like I had enough force power to do anything. Lightsaber was disappointing. It felt weak and didn't dismember troops. Minimal, I know, that's why it's a niggle. But if you've got a white hot blade, it should be cutting through everything, not bouncing off people's batons and stuff and enemy hides. You know, the animals shouldn't have impervious hides that take 1,000,000 hits just to take off a chunk of health. It felt lacking for me. Really minor, but every option was a hold button. You had to hold X to do everything. I'd rather just press X, to be fair. But that's me, and that's a very minor niggle. I didn't like that the heavy attack was linked to your force meter, so when you don't have enough force power anyway, then your heavy attack, which half the time didn't land, you just can't use it. So I didn't. I just mashed X all the way through. There's also after the first bounty hunter bit, like an Assassin's Creed Odyssey mercenary style, you will come across other bounty hunters in certain areas of certain maps on certain worlds. It was fine initially, but it just got quite laboured, having to fight off one guy charging at you, another guy shooting at you, and again, it's the combat. I didn't find it interesting, so I didn't like that. But again, that's a niggle. It's a minor thing. I can see why people would enjoy it, and I can see why people would enjoy the challenge. I just don't with this. I want a Star Wars game that tells me a story overall, and I don't want to be playing Dark Souls to get to that story. This is totally from my perspective. You could completely disagree, and you probably will completely disagree. It's fine. Absolutely fine. But I didn't enjoy the experience of playing this game. I didn't hate it, I just didn't enjoy it. But that's enough about the gameplay itself. I really want to talk about the story, which again for me was a mixed bag, but there are some elements in this game that are just fantastic. Some of the best storytelling that we've had in a Star Wars game. What Star Wars games have we had in the last 10 years? Battlefront 2, Battlefront 1. We haven't really had a big Star Wars game. EA haven't wanted to make a big, single player Star Wars game, so all of those hopes and wishes was pinned onto this, which I think is unfair, because that's not what Respawn wanted to do. And Respawn, brilliant studio. I love Titanfall. Titanfall 2 is one of the best campaigns, definitely of the last generation, possibly of all time. Such a strong campaign, so maybe that's again why I wanted more from this. But the story overall, or the main story, I thought was a little bit dull. I'm kind of tired of Jedi's surviving the purge, and then we've got to find more Jedi, and we've got to do this, and we've got to go and get the holocron and rebuild the order, and I think we've done that now over the last 40 years. Can we not just keep going over this same old ground? Again, this is probably just me being really picky. I want new tales. I don't want to be rehashing stuff like that. This will get into spoilers. So first spoiler I want to touch on is returning characters. Saw Gerrera, who we see in, I think is he in Clone Wars or Rebels or one of the animated shows. He's also in Rogue One, played by Forrest Whitaker. Forrest Whitaker's back, voicing the character in this. This is a younger Saw, but it's really cool to see him come in on the Kashyyyk mission. Yeah, it's nice that they can bring in characters like this and reuse them and play about with them. I like seeing old faces in stuff like this. But towards the end, there is a moment where, after fighting the second sister, who I will go into in a little while, because she really was a standout for me. But after fighting her on the final mission of the game, you get the entrance of Darth Vader. It does make sense why he's there, being that you are playing a fallen Padawan, I guess, who has re-established his connection with the Force and is becoming powerful enough to probably be a Jedi Knight of the old times. Quite a powerful Force user as well, I think Cal is. And I get that Vader would be hunting Jedi, and he comes in and he is terrifying. The whole sequence is brilliantly done, and it really does work well, and it works with the story. They did this with Rogue One as well, but it builds on the idea that Darth Vader is just terror personified. I did really enjoy the flashback scenes of Cal Kestis, our hero, as a Padawan, and his Jedi Master Jarrod Paul, who was voiced by the incredible Travis Willingham. I loved the training room moments and the backstory and the interplay between them, and the whole section of the ship as Order 66 comes through. Brilliant. Just fantastic. Cal himself, I didn't connect with. I thought he was a little bit bland, which is a shame, because I really want to like Cal. I'm indifferent to him. But that probably builds into my feeling of the game, which is probably harsher criticism. But I'd like to see more. I'd like to see him in other things. I'm just thinking, when this was set, is there anything that you could bring him into, or anything that you could do with him? Could you do maybe a Disney Plus Fallen Order thing? I know that they're doing a second game, I think. Maybe we'll get more of Cal then, in a more interesting way. I'm willing to give him the time. He didn't resonate with me here. We'll touch on the rest of the crew before we get into certain other elements then. So we have Captain Grease. Thought he was a jerk. I didn't care. Sere Junda, who is the Jedi who has cut herself off from the Force because of the terrible things that were done to her and her Padawan. In the last mission, she has some great stuff, and you really get the badass vibe from her, but I thought she was quite a boring character up to that point. Again, I didn't really care for her. There is a section on Dathomir, a couple of sections on Dathomir actually, where you meet another member of the crew, or who later joins your crew, a Night Sister Marine, who is the last of her kind after the Purge. But I thought she was a really interesting character. They really did a lot with her in the small moments that you see her. She does join the crew and then doesn't really do a lot because she joins so late in the game. It would have been nice if she'd had a bigger part. But yeah, she was excellent. I'd love to see more of her. One of the two highlights for me is BD1. BD's a great little companion. Really works well. Respawn have a fantastic way of working droids and mechs in as companions and doing a brilliant job. I would very happily have a BD1 companion droid at all times. So that was cool. Through the Dathomir sequence, you do meet a new enemy, voiced by none other than Spartacus himself, Liam McIntyre. His name is Taron Malicos. He was pretty cool. Dark Jedi vibes. He's a fallen Jedi who is playing with the power of Dathomir and the darkness that sort of lives in the planet. That was cool. It felt like you could do a lot more with him. He could have maybe have been a bigger villain going through the game, maybe keep him back for a sequel. But he did really well. I enjoyed the build up, the introduction, and the build up to the final confrontation with him, which worked really well. The standout for me throughout the entire game, and the person who has the best story, the best arc, and just incredible, is the second sister, Trilla Sunduri. Her story was fantastic. She starts out as just this menacing inquisitor, and you really go on a journey with her and through her. Yeah, more of her, please. I will say, I loved her character. I loved her journey. I won't go into details, but every time there was an interaction between her and Cal, they were the highlights of the game for me. She was great, absolutely fantastic. I did connect more with the villains in this game than the main cast, which is fine. I just felt that the villains had more memorable moments with the second sister and with Malicos. They were just more memorable to me. Maybe because they had more interesting stories. But overall, the game's fine. It's not the Star Wars that I would have wanted, but it's fine. It ticks enough boxes for everyone. It pushes the lore further. There's some really nice bits with Ilum, where you're trying to find a new Kyber crystal. I think they had a vision for this game that I feel that they have fulfilled. But it's Dark Souls light. It's Uncharted light. The story is light. The main story. Go find a box. Go around 4 different planets 8 times to unlock secrets. It feels very restricted. The problem is, with the Star Wars that we've been getting, this is a standout. Because it just feels like Star Wars. And that's the problem. If we'd had great Star Wars coming out for the last 10 years, and EA had been putting out great Star Wars games and a variety of your multiplayer Battlefronts, and then your campaign stuff, I don't think this would have been received quite as well. I think, from my part, the reviews hyped it up, and because it wasn't bad Star Wars, in my head I let it become something more than, and over the year that I've been waiting to play it, it became, oh, I really want to play this. This sounds really great. It wasn't for me. It wasn't an enjoyable experience until I put it onto story mode and made the combat easier, regardless of how good the story was. And for me, as a more role-play, story kind of gamer, can we get a game with, you know, a Han Solo type who isn't a Jedi, who isn't trying to restart the Order, just trying to survive in the galaxy while the Empire's taken over? I just feel that the license isn't where it needs to be to get the kind of game that I want out of Star Wars. I hope that Respawn can take what they built with this game. If they're using this just to test the things that they want to do and making a different style of game, and then the sequel or whatever they do next is top notch, I'm fine with that. Overall, 70% of the story is solid. And that's more to do with the side characters and how they build into it. But outside of that, the rest of the games didn't work for me, and that's really disappointing. I didn't enjoy it. I won't be playing it again. But this has kind of turned into a bit of a rant and a dig at Star Wars, hasn't it? Really, that's not how I initially wanted this to start out with. I will cautiously hold out hope for the sequel to be a good step up. I will be watching the news and trailers. I don't think we'll be seeing anything soon. It's only just been announced back in the summer, I think it was. But we'll see. Hopefully they can really dig into the characters and make them shine in the next one, because they are a talented bunch at Respawn. But we'll see. That's it for this one. It feels like it's been a bit of a rant, really, and that's just how I felt about it, which is a shame. Thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.